Okay, let's meet the panel. Richard Fowler, who I've now renamed Robert, just for fun. Richard, good to see you here this morning.
Morning, Harris.
He's a Democratic political strategist. He's at our D.C. bureau. And as I kind of tweet this morning on our live chat, I simulcast on Twitter, you'll probably see at Richard Fowler, it's Richard A. Fowler, pop up every now and then, and you'll know who we're talking about. Now, sitting to my right, I don't know if you guys have seen each other before, if you've actually chatted. This is going to be interesting. Former New York Congresswoman Sue Kelly is here. She laughs. She knows she's a barracuda. Good morning. Good to have you here this morning.
Good morning, Harris.
New York politics are still being talked about because this whole Anthony Weiner thing. It's kind of interesting because really and truly, I don't think people were ever so focused on New York. Maybe when Giuliani was running for president previously and maybe with a few things Bloomberg did, but now the focus is even sharper. We're not going to go down the road with Anthony Weiner, but I just wanted to say that I hear the words New York politician dripping off the lips almost now like Chicago politician. Your thought quickly on that.
It's a sad descent from when I moved to New York.
Chicago's a nice place, but it doesn't have a good reputation.
And New York is a great place, but it doesn't have a great political reputation.
Yeah.
During the time I've been active in politics in New York, it's gone from a high level of gentlewomen talking to each other, and the debates have been at a high level. Mm-hmm. No longer.
Yeah,
it's a sad thing.
It is a sad thing. All right, well, let's pick up with a smile this morning, shall we? Because we have a lot to talk about. Richard, what do you think about the field broadening? First of all, did you watch the debate Monday night?
Not only did I watch the debate, Harris, but I live tweeted. I think I had about 100 tweets that evening.
I got to follow you.
You have to follow me on Twitter, Harris. You just got to. But I watched the debate, and I also released my image report card, progressive image report card on my blog, so you could take a look and read that. I graded all the candidates, and let me tell you, only one candidate got an A in my book, and that's Michelle Bachmann. She was absolutely incredible on Monday night. She really was electrifying. She told her story to the American people, and like I told a good colleague of mine last night, it's like a SAT algorithm. Michelle Bachmann is to Mitt Romney what Barack Obama was to Hillary Clinton. Mitt Romney should be very afraid of Michelle Bachmann going into the Iowa caucus, especially because he's not playing in Iowa like Michelle Bachmann is. And if Michelle Bachmann wins Iowa, Michelle Bachmann will roll around and win South Carolina. It'll be a 2-2 game, even if he wins New Hampshire and Nevada. So we need to pay attention to Miss Bachmann, but she's doing big things.
That's very interesting. Sue, as a former Congresswoman, I know that you maybe even see some similarities in Ms. Bachmann's ascent. I mean, there's still, even though we talk about there are women in Congress, there's still not a lot of us. No. I mean, there are not a lot of females in Congress. So when you see one run for president, it's still like watching a dog walk on its hind legs for 50 days in a row. I mean, it's still pretty rare, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. When you talk about the number of women in Congress, you're talking about mostly Democrat women. There are very few Republican women left. When I went into Congress, my class alone, that freshman class had 7 women in it. That just simply was that was great because we really added to the number of Republican women. Now, I'm not sure, but I think there's like 21 Republican women left.
They're not a lot.
As opposed, there's nearly 100 Democrat women. So there's definitely an uneven situation with regard to that, but also I think that clearly demonstrates the trouble that Michelle Bachmann really is up against.
Really?
People aren't looking at the way Republican voters vote. They vote for men. And I think that's very, it's very, very hard.
Do you think
She's
Sarah
had a good
Palin knows
fundraising.
that?
I do. And I don't think Sarah Palin's going to get into this race because Michelle Bachmann has trumped her game.
How so?
Well, she's raised a huge amount of money. She's given millions to the Republican cause in various places. The National Republican Congressional Committee. She's given it to candidates individually. She's a big fundraiser. But I would contend that one of the problems she faces is the fact she's never been a chairman or even a subcommittee chairman. And you have to be a chairman of a committee or a subcommittee chairman to understand how the Congress really works, because you have to negotiate with everybody on Capitol Hill if you're trying to drive some kind of legislation through. Michelle doesn't seem to be able to do that. She's not put herself in a position, or they haven't put her in a position to do that. I'm concerned about a lack of training. Basically, I
but from what you're
want to elect somebody
it's
without
like
training
when you come
wheels.
out of college, you know, Richard, when you say, well, I need to get that first job, but you can't get the first job because everybody keeps saying, well, you need job experience. I mean, from what you're telling me is because there are not that many women role models, really, for Republican women in Congress and that sort of ascent. And we really don't have that many governors in this country either who are female governors, and then it gets even smaller when you say female Republican governors. So how then can you criticize Michelle Bachmann for not having enough experience when you say how tough it is to get that experience?
I'm not criticizing her. I'm only simply stating a fact. We elected a president who also had training wheels, and look what he's done to the country.
Richard?
I'm concerned about that.
Well, hold on a second now, Congresswoman. You know, I beg to differ. I think that Michelle Bachmann is not only is she a leader in her party, but she's the chair of the Tea Party caucus. And, you know, I'm not the one to defend Michelle Bachmann, Harris. I got to tell you. But in this situation, I think Michelle Bachmann has a right to run. She's developed a clear mantle for herself, a clear base of voters, and I don't think it really matters what she's done in Congress. I think she's very clearly said, and she said in the debate yesterday, not only do I sit on the House Intelligence Committee, but I was one of the few Republicans that stood up to Hank Paulson and George W. Bush about the blank check to Wall Street. And that right there is going to get voters excited, are going to get voters enthusiastic, especially because I tend to find Mitt Romney to be very boring. And as a Democrat, I'm praying that we get Mitt Romney as the nominee because I think President Obama will trash him in the 2012 election pretty simply. One, Mitt Romney won't win his home state, whichever home state that is, but he will clearly not win Massachusetts. And he was the model for President Obama's health care plan. So he's just as much a Democrat as President Obama is in my mind.
Spoken as a true Democrat.
Oh, gosh,
that's exactly
of course.
what I would expect you to say. You're looking for flash. You're looking for a lot of glib generalities and somebody with a great smile
you know who
and
you sound
presence.
Like.
But it's not reality.
You know
what
who
this
you sound
country
like?
needs now is reality. We need somebody who can really govern and lead.
Well, hold on a second.
You sound like Tim Pawlenty, former governor out of Minnesota, when he says, no, seriously, he says if you want a chat, what was it, a commander in clown or a clown in chief or something like that, then don't vote for me. I mean, that's basically was a vote for somebody else.
Right.
I want to say that not have I seen this really since Sarah Palin. But when we started talking about Michelle Bachmann, the live chat just woke up. It's like their coffee just got an instant little caffeine jolt. Hendrik Van Dorp says Perry/Bachmann is a ticket. So that would be Rick Perry out of Texas and Michelle Bachmann out of Minnesota. But I don't care much for her. She doesn't seem to be polarizing, but she, at least on the live chat, I don't think people feel like they know enough about her to really like her yet. But they'd rather see her than anybody else out there. What does that tell you?
Well, wait, he said Perry/Bachmann.
They see her as a vice presidential.
That's right. That's the problem women have. They are not seen as leaders. If Michelle Bachmann is the party's nominee, Michelle Bachmann, I'm saying it right now, she will lose. It's because this country simply isn't ready to elect women.
Wait a minute. Now, Richard, let's put it to, let's say this, because I find it hard to believe that you would say that, considering how well Hillary Clinton did. And, I mean, in some circles, people would argue that they expected a woman to get elected first before a African-American man in this country. So maybe we've already bested the curve that you're talking about.
No, if we had that curve, Hillary Clinton would be president. I think.
Hold on a second.
Let's get Richard's. I told you she was fiery.
Hold on a second now, Congresswoman. Now, let's just put it out there. First of all, not only did Hillary Clinton put 1 million cracks in the marble ceiling that stops women from ascending.
Now it's marble. Before it was crystal. What is it?
but on top of that, we saw Speaker Nancy Pelosi, for the first time in history, we had a woman Speaker of the House of Representatives, and she did more, and she was one of the most powerful speakers in modern times.
She was not elected by the general public, however, to be in that position.
That's not the point.
That's
not the point, though. That's not the point, Congressman. What she did, she had the ability to lead. And And what America needs to know is that a woman has as much the ability to lead as a man does. And that's a distinction, Harris, between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party.
Gee, let's look at what Nancy did.
Because we know that women know how to lead. As much as you might not like it, when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker, we saw the economy turn around. Under President Obama, an African-American man, we saw the economy turn around. The simple fact is, in the past 2.5 years, we've seen 8% GDP growth over time. And on top of that, the Republicans need somebody that is able to mobilize their base and mobilize independent voters and also mobilize minorities. And sadly, an older Caucasian guy just cannot do that.
All right,
and if they pick an older Caucasian guy, we'll win. And we want to win, so it's good.
Let's not make it about race, because that's... And just to tell you how serious this is, Sue just took out her pen. She's writing down stuff now. Hey, look, we've had a little bit of breaking news, so I got to slide this in here. Members of Congress now have announced a federal lawsuit concerning President Obama and the Libyan war and the American people. Congressman Dennis Kucinich, a Democrat, a far right-leaning Democrat.
Left-leaning.
Left. Did I say right?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness gracious. It's a good thing I'm wearing sandals, because you can't tell my shoes are on the wrong feet. Okay. Congressman Kucinich and Walter Jones, a Republican out of North Carolina, are planning to lead a bipartisan group this week to file a complaint in federal court concerning Obama, the war in Libya, and the American people. You're nodding. You know about this. What?
No, I don't know about it. I know Walter Jones well. Walter has long taken an anti-war stance. And Walter is somebody who believes in following the book. He's a good, solid congressman, and I'm not at all surprised he's joined Dennis Kucinich, because the president is flouting the War Powers Act, and Congress needs to do something about it. So they're taking up the cudgel to do something.
Richard, I want to get your thought on this, because it almost seems counterintuitive to go forward at this point with Mr. Obama, you got it wrong on Libya, when now next you've got all these other countries. I mean,
Syria.
Yeah, Syria. I mean, it's all, I don't want to say counterintuitive, but almost too late. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it is counterintuitive, and it might be too late here. There's a few things here. There's a few problems wrong with this lawsuit. The first problem wrong with this lawsuit is that we have no combat troops on the ground in Libya, point blank, period. Additionally, we're not at war with Libya. And thirdly, we're not leading the coalition in Libya. We are part of a NATO-led coalition to get rid of Gaddafi, because Gaddafi is not only is he insane, but he's killing his people. We have CIA operatives in Libya, but that is about it. So I don't really think we're at war with Libya. I don't think the president's violating his war power. He's just strategically moved troops in a location to create a situation where the Gaddafi feels as though he needs to step down.
Okay,
well, wait a minute. He's spending money. He's spending our money, and he's going in spending our money in a military way, unauthorized by Congress, which is essentially he's declared an illegal war.
It is not an illegal war, Congressman, for a few reasons. We have no combat troops on the ground.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Now, I have to step in there.
And what about Syria? Why isn't he there? Why isn't he complaining? Why is there no leadership on Syria?
The president,
8,500 people ran into Turkey the other day.
In the entire Middle Eastern Spring, or the Muslim Spring, whatever the term is now for it, we've seen the president lead. He's called for all these leaders to respect the people's rights to have a democracy. Yeah.
Richard,
he's continued to do that for the entire time.
Let me interrupt you for just a second, because we're running out of time here, and I want to make sure we get to the bulk of this issue. Sue mentioned it. And I don't mean to be callous by saying this, and if our live viewers disagree, you guys can put it on the live chat and I'll read it. This comes down to money. I mean, I'd love to say that there's some altruistic reason for us getting involved in the Middle East, but quite frankly, it's such a can of whoopsie right now that who knows where to put anything. I mean, actually, Herman Cain, at the debate the other night, when he answered the question about foreign policy, my husband said, well, you know, he's kind of right. No one really knows what to do. It wasn't much of an answer, but it was true. So as we go forward here, if it comes down to money, why are we involved at all in any of these places outside of maybe giving? Why don't we just write them a check? I mean, seriously, rather than putting our people in harm's way.
Well, Well, I think you can't just write a check, Harris, pretty simply because we're not really sure who the leaders of this country
are.
Well,
then why are we fighting along people in Libya when 60%, I read, and Michelle Bachmann mentioned it the other night, we don't know what percentage really, it could be well above 50, are al-Qaeda members among the militants, among those rebel anti-government fighters in Libya. I mean, if we don't know enough to align with them, what are we doing?
I think we're standing with the people that are fighting for democracy. I don't think we're standing with the Taliban. We're not standing with Al-Qaeda. We're standing with people fighting for democracy.
But you don't know that. You don't know who's in that group.
You're calling, they want freedom, not necessarily
but that's
democracy.
why we have the Secret Service there. We're using our intelligence to the best of our ability to figure out who's fighting for freedom and democracy, and we're working with those individuals. And that's what the State Department has been charged to do by the president, and Hillary Clinton is doing just that.
All right. Richard, I want to get your last thought real quickly because I'm going to have to let you go off the satellite here. President Obama really has kind of quieted. He's been kind of quiet in the last week or so. When he reemerges, what do you see coming from his camp? Will he be campaign focused, or is he going to do jobs, or what's next?
I'm glad you asked that, Harris. I think when the president comes back, he's going to do one thing. He's going to work on building up his base and reviving his base, reviving all the Latinos, all the Dreamers, all the African Americans, all the labor unions, and saying it's time for us to get to war, because we saw clearly on Monday night that the Republicans have their arrows clearly focused on President Obama. They won't attack each other, and they're going after the president. And we need to attack them back and say, hey, listen, we've given you the keys for the past 7 or 8 months, and we've seen no jobs. And under President Obama, we've seen 8% GDP growth. So I really think that we're going to see the president, we're going to see him rally his coalitions.
You know, it's interesting. You talk about Michelle Bachmann as being somebody that the administration, because I love a good apostrophe, should be worried about as we go forward toward 2012. Sue Kelly is here, former Republican, well, she's still a Republican, but former Congresswoman from New York, says that Michelle Bachmann is formidable, but probably not atop the ticket. It's interesting, your different takes, but you can't get away from the fact that she really emerged from that debate as somebody that people are focused on. You think the president should stay campaign focused. I think we ought to take a poll. Campaign focused or economy focused. It'll be interesting to see if he can do both. All right, Richard A. Fowler. If you want to find him on Twitter, I have. I'll be following him. Thank you, my friend, for being here.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
All right, real quickly before we move on to our next